Hello, everyone. Oh, let me try that again. Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard. It is the 26th of March, Tuesday, and are we ready to go? I think so. We'll be joined I'm Jeff, by the way, coming to you live from Tasmania in Australia, pretty close to the bottom of the world. And I should be joined in the next few minutes by Ash, who will come to us live from, well, not London, outside of London, at a place called Brighton in the UK. Righto, what are we doing here? We're going to take a look first up at what news we have today, but it's pretty much like Mother Hubbard's cupboard in the news department today from what I saw before. Where is it? There it is. So the calendar's telling me that Tuesday the 26th of March has one hot item of news, and that is CB consumer confidence coming out of the USA at 2 p.m. London time. That, of course, is around about 6.5 hours, pardon me, from now. That's really not going to worry me too much. I'll be sound asleep. I can promise you that. So, spectrum is green, guys. I can trade without too much concern for what may shift the market in terms of scheduled news or data releases. Well, let's take a look at the markets, shall we, and see what's going on around the place. Well, there's plenty of green on screen, I'd have to say that, and that is a little bit of a concern, really, because you'd like to see some form of uniformity. In other words, you'd like to see red against the US and green against the secondary currencies. It's a bit of a mixed bag, I'd have to say. We're looking at the last couple of hours here. I'm actually going to go back. I'm going to go back 48 hours. Let me do that. There we go. 48 hours ago. It's even worse. There's more green on screen. When I say worse, I mean it's a great thing if you're trading in the right direction, but I really do like to see some weak US dollar signs and some strong euro or pound, Aussie and Kiwi signs. Instead, I'm seeing things, most definitely, but I'm also seeing, and only against the risk off currencies or the safe haven, it must be said the pound and the yen is the dollar holding its own, if I can call it that. So I suppose I've got to say that the majors are trending long against the dollar.
Hi mate, it's
hello,
can you hear me all right? Hey buddy,
right.
just really quickly, there is a trade that I've just taken, so I don't know if anybody wants to have a look at that really quickly.
Trading's first, let's go.
Okay, so we're going long FTSE. Long FTSE, exactly where it is. Let me give you this screen here. You see my screen okay?
Yeah, mate.
Literally I've just literally triggered it in, so if anybody wants to get into this, not going to be too far off. So I've got a long FTSE down here. There's a kind of inverted head and shoulders, and the move down there. So just long FTSE. It'll be a slightly different price for you guys because you won't be trading futures, but it's effectively the same trade. So whatever the price is, take it at market if you want to follow the same trade as me. I'll probably post it in Telegram as well. But I thought I better just quickly get to that, mate. I'll explain why later on.
All right, go and do your Telegram, mate, and I'll continue. We'll come back to you when you return.
Okay, great stuff.
All right, guys, there's an early trade for us. FTSE long and going into the US session in about 22 minutes. Let's hope that can gain some momentum. All right, I'll bring my screen back. I think I'll bring my screen back. There we go. And just go back to that conclusion that I drew, that we're potentially looking at dollar weakness on everything except the safe haven currencies, yen and Swissy, which is interesting. Tends to suggest that we're in a risk-on situation. So you'd be expecting to see crosses like, or currencies like the Aussie, Kiwi rally, and that's kind of what we're seeing there. Kiwi's come off a little bit in the last day, or 2 day, should I say. So has the Aussie, and so has pretty much everything. So we're looking at retracements here. That's what I'm seeing. Not necessarily so, but we'll match those up with some charts and see what we can discover, shall we? I'll start with Aussie yen. The reason I'm starting with Aussie yen is this was something I looked at this morning on the daily chart, and what I saw was a break of the trend line we've got sitting here, and then retested not only the trend line but the weekly pivot as well. Now, when I look at that, I think two things. I think one is we've tried to get through the bottom of the range and failed, but the other is we've tried to get through the bottom of the range and maybe we're on hold here until price comes back to that level. So I'm not dismissing the fact that this could go short, but as always, where's the best place to go short from? Resistance. So let's find some resistance, shall we? Well, there was some here, there was some here, there's some here. The question is, which is the strongest, and where do we look for a trade? Well, the answer I'm going to give you from my point of view is, well, let's go to the daily chart and have a good look. Where is that strongest level of resistance? And I'm going to say it's around about there somewhere. Why? Support here, resistance here, mess here really, but it kind of coincides, does it not? If I go a bit tighter with where the monthly pivot is, that level there. So I'm okay with letting this go to the monthly pivot and not thinking about trading it short until we get there. Can I trade it to the monthly pivot? Sure, if I've got something that tells me that's possible. Currently, I've got a downtrend. You wouldn't think so when you look at that chart, but according to my pivots, we are trending short. I guess on this part of the chart, you could probably say that's a retracement on a bear move. But yeah, it's not that clear, is it? To be fair, but when I'm looking to trade long, and I've had a bullish engulfing bar, the very first thing I'm going to look for is a higher low. No sign of that right now. So until I get that, I really can't trade this cross long. So it's kind of let it go to the monthly pivot, then look for a short. So that's where I'm at with that one. Euro dollar, we're still in this shorts, and look, I've actually scaled back into this, and I haven't been triggered yet because I put my entry just about down here, 5 pips below the daily pivot is where I put my entry. So 113.03, I think it was, maybe there somewhere. So I've just been entered into the second position on this cross, and I'm not convinced that that the weekly pivot won't copper test, and I said that yesterday. But I am convinced that if price comes down to here, it will go further, and it'll test the lows, and it'll probably look to break clear of this range again. So that's why I've taken that second position, but I thought I'd get it clear of the noise, and so far that appears to have been a pretty damn good decision. Let's hope this continues short, of course, and does trigger me at some stage when we get down to here. I've got a first take profit level here, and I've got a second take profit level just about there. The rest I'll just let fly. That's euro dollar. Mate, I'll go to the other two majors, the Aussie and the pound, and then we can come back and explain that trade. I think it's probably a good idea.
Yep, sounds good.
Aussie today has kind of got a boot up the backside, and has bounced pretty clearly off this support trend line and just shot through every piece of resistance that we put in front of it. Daily pivot, weekly pivot, took my trailing stop out yesterday, of course, and it just doesn't look like it wants to stop. So clearly, similar to Aussie yen, I'd be looking for a monthly pivot test before I did anything here. At the very least, a monthly pivot test, maybe even a trend line test. Can I trade it to there? Again, same answer. I've got to get back down here and give myself a higher low before I consider it. And finally, cable. Look, I won't say I'm desperate to get long cable, but gee, I'd like to. And I won't be doing it from here right now. I looked at this morning on the daily charts, and I saw nothing really that was telling me it's ready to go, except maybe this bar here. But you're not going to trade that bar, that's for sure. So I was really looking for something to come back to the pivots and give me an entry. It came back to the pivots all right, but I don't really see an entry there, to be fair. There is a tight little range in here, and that will probably be my area of focus today on the smaller time frames. If it goes, it goes, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. But you can see that little range that we've entrenched ourselves in over the past 24 hours or so. So I'd be happy to trade this back to the pivots if it sets up properly, or I'd certainly be willing to let it come back to the pivots, then look for a higher low, and then look to trade long. So trading long from here, much better prospect than trading long from there, in my humble opinion. So nothing really crystal clear at the moment, certainly no trade setting up just yet. So tell us, mate, welcome home, by the way.
Thank you, buddy.
How was your trip?
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. Obviously tiring. I think after the first night I arrived, I had about 8 hours sleep, and I thought I've nailed this stuff. I've nailed this jet lag stuff, and I woke up the next morning feeling pretty good. But then the next day, I think I had 2 hours, and then the next night I had an hour and a half, and yeah, just I don't know why.
4 in the morning, mate. That's
No, I think the latest I got to bed. First night I think I was in bed by about 10. Second night was about 10:30. It was always around about that time. I was always in bed quite early. But just the problem is, as soon as you wake up, or as soon as I wake up, I can't then get back to sleep. So yeah, it was pretty tiring, but really good. We got some really good people as part of the company now. Some new partners that seem to be people that will work really hard, and they seem to really enjoy the weekend. And subsequently, I think it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to have a look through daily wave riders on the odd occasion as well, because obviously that's what people learn over the weekend, and there's every chance that they'll start watching this show, and it'd probably be quite good to give them something that's relevant to them. And obviously, everybody that's part of Actions to Wealth would have gone through the Daily Wave Rider, so it might be worth us having a look at that as well on a daily basis.
Those folk who were in the room who've got no idea what Daily Wave Rider is and who Actions to Wealth are, I suppose. Although they must know by now because they're in the room, so they know the words at least. But,
yes.
What a good idea. Why not?
Yeah.
Introduce those things. I know they've got a trade on at the moment.
Oh, have they?
Yep. Euro Aussie short.
Oh, we'll have a look. Which is it? Sorry.
Euro Aussie short.
Euro Aussie short. Okay, let's talk about this FTSE, and then we'll talk about the Euro Aussie. So market's got a little while to open up. So the key thing here is all about the higher time frames. So I'm going to start with a monthly. It's not really necessary, but I'm going to start with a monthly. The reason it's not necessary is that we haven't really got closed just yet, but we're getting fairly close. What is it, the 26th? So we haven't got too many days left here. Okay, so monthly is just starting to look like a high test bar, if you like. Looks like an Actions to Wealth high test bar, but certainly it has tested this area here. It's tested this horizontal level, rejected it, and price is currently kind of being pushed right down to these lows here. That's a worrying sign. There's no kind of doubt about that. That is a worrying sign, and I have got some shorts that will get triggered in if the market doesn't go to and move to the upside. The weekly is also a major concern that we haven't really got through this level. This is an inverted head and shoulders. So the pattern is probably going to trump the one bar, but last week's bar is a little concerning. So you've really got the month that could be that could end up being fairly bearish, or giving a fairly bearish signal, I should say. You've got a weekly bar which suggests that the price has been rejected in you know, a quite a significant area here. There's some area of confluence as well when we bring this trend line in here. So this hasn't quite touched it, but it's fairly close. What this does suggest is that if price goes back up to this point, then it's going to get that little bit closer to this trend line, and it's much more likely to be rejected. So there is some weakness up here. It is concerning that the weakness really happened at the end of the week. This is Friday's bar. So the week closed very, very negatively. So that's that could be quite problematic, and that's a pretty significant bar as well when you consider that it's engulfed not the range but certainly the buy and low, the buy and close for this bar. 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. You know, it took out 5 bars range in one hit, so that could be fairly significant. That's the daily.
Yeah, that's a big bar.
That's a big bar, right?
Like a lot of people close their positions right there in the. That's what
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, this was off the back of a really bullish run, a very, very bullish and strong run to the upside, thinking that everything was going to be all right with this trade war scenario. The trade war scenario has just been a little bit flat recently. Then we had some awful numbers out of Europe, and it really did trigger the market to have some significant moves. So, you know, the fact that it held yesterday, and I wanted to see that. I was going to trade this yesterday, because the first thing that I'll always consider is price, and there's no doubt about it. We are in a buy zone, if you like. You know, this is an area that would be an area that everybody or a lot of people would be watching. There's a you know, few areas of confluence here, so not a huge surprise that it gets to this point. When we break it down to some of the shorter term time frames, the significant aspect then becomes into these. You know, we start to see that the pivot down here, the monthly pivot, is in this area as well. So lots of reason for the market to hold in this point. Now, obviously, with all that said, you know, that there is market weakness, but we are in a buy zone. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to try and get it all the way back to this point here. But what it does mean is the weekly pivot would be a target. You know, that's what I'm going to look for, and we think if we're getting in down here, that's going to be around about 65 to 70 pip profit if we can get to this point here, and I'll be quite happy with that. At that point, then there's choices to be made. You know, do we trigger in a second trade, maybe go short? Do we kind of get out the market altogether and let the month just kind of give a bit of a clearer signal, or do we try and ride what we've got to the top? So this will be the target, mate. That's what, until I get to this target, I will be doing nothing. So weekly pivot on the futures is at 71.70 now. Anybody that's got in, I've got 71.70, it's about 65 pips. So anybody that's got in at the 86 level, which is what I've just posted out, you're looking for around about 65 pips on the 86 level. No, I can't quite work that out, but I will do later. But there is an inverted head and shoulders, so there's enough reason to get in. There's also a trend line break just along here, and the daily pivot as well, and also a horizontal level on the hourly. Now we're talking.
Yes, hourly. Kind of your weird looking inverted head and shoulders neckline and break and retest as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, that's absolutely right, and you're right. It is odd looking because there's no gap between the neckline and the head. You know, the head really sort of, because of this bar here, it's you know, it's all kind of part of the same move. So yeah, you make a relevant point there that it is a strange looking. The most important thing with it is that it's an accumulation signal. You know, the down here we get the bounce, down here we get a lower low but an aggressive bounce, and then a hold, and then a break, and the first higher low potentially here. So all I'm trying to do is trade the first higher low. That's the bottom line with it. So that's what we have now. As always, I'm thinking of catalysts and what's going to drive this forward. Now, I have to say, being away from the charts for a day or so is a little bit off-putting. Not so much being away from the charts, but being away from my particular news sources is a little bit off-putting. So I'm not 100% crystal clear on what could drive this, and I will look for some reasons. But what I think about this is, when the market started to move to the downside and it held on Monday, my thinking process is that in actual fact this bar was off the back of some decent European news. But if it comes down here because of poor German manufacturing and it holds, it suggests to me that that particular news has now been priced in or played out. So that's why the buy zone is an area that you can start to look at. So there is a driver, but in some respects, I was really looking for the driver to the downside to then subside, because after saying everything that I've said, when we go back to the daily chart here, and I'm flitting around a little bit here, but I'm giving you pretty much everything that's going on in my mind. Even though we got these bars here, this is still a trend to the upside. Even with all the aggression that's in the market and all the volatility, it's still a trend to the upside. This is still effectively would constitute a higher low. Is a higher high, is a low, higher low, and that low, higher high, and this would be a higher low in this area. So ultimately, we're still trending, which is why the overview is going to trump any little tiny bits of detail, even though I don't particularly like this detail. The overview is for further upsides. That's why I'm staying in here with this one, mate.
Happy days, mate. Let's hope the open gives us a good run, hey, to the upside, obviously.
Yeah, it would be good. It's a little bit tricky because the volatility is so prevalent that it could give us a decent run to the upside. I mean, we might find ourselves right up to these pivot points here on the back to the hourly. Might find ourselves right up to these pivot points here really early and have to make a decision too early. I don't really want that. In some respects, I much prefer when a market will move, swing down, swing up, swing down, swing up, because it has chance to catch its breath. The trouble is, and I was saying this previously, when you get a market which moves up like this, there is a higher probability that it's going to move down like that. So I much prefer a kind of a market which is stepping up rather than just surging up. So let's see what we get. But I wanted to get to the weekly pivot, obviously, but I'd like a bit of time.
Staircase and elevator, mate. It's the way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a fairly steep staircase, but yeah, couldn't be a better example of staircase and elevator. That angle is completely different to that angle. Obviously, the fear is far greater than the greed.
Absolutely, always is. Mate, I'll come back to me, and if you want to have a look at that daily Euro Aussie daily wave riding.
Oh yeah.
Then we'll come back and have a look at that.
That'd be great.
When I'm finished here. I gave the guys a pretty good look at how I trade last night, because we got a nice little 30-minute entry on this currency here, which was pound yen. And the best way to describe it to you guys is it's kind of picture perfect. It doesn't get much clearer than this as to what I have to do, because we've come off a support level. We've broken through the first resistance level. What are we looking for, or what am I looking for as a trader, or as a trader that trades the strategy that I trade or the way I trade? What am I looking for after support? I'm looking for resistance, right? What am I looking for after resistance breaks? I'm looking for the next resistance level. What am I looking for after that resistance break? I'm looking for the next resistance level. So when I find an entry that's telling me the support is done with for right now and is doing its job, and we come back and test the resistance that we've just been through, then there's an entry here to the high side, to the long side. There's a resistance level here which is clear, so we take profit here, and our ultimate target probably is here, but our next resistance level is here, so we also have to scale out here. And at that point, when I take my second profit, I'll move my stop to entry. So there was no third leg of this one, but the first and second were very, very clear. So we entered the market here above this bar. We took our first profit here. We got there reasonably quickly. We got there reasonably quickly as well, but I missed the TP2. It did give us a second chance. So hopefully, if you guys were following that, you took your second profit when it did spike. I think it actually missed the monthly pivot by a 15th, and you could have just taken it there if you're trading manually. So that would have been the way to go. At that point, move your stops to entry, and you would have banked twice and lost nothing coming back. You would have been taken out had you not taken any profit. And there's the key. That is the absolute key to how I trade these 30-minute time frames. I'm looking to take profit at resistance, and it doesn't matter what happens after that. You've got a good trade no matter what. And the no matter what actually occurred. So it came back, your stops are here, stops are gone, and you've lost money if you don't take profit. So I hope that gives you guys a good indication of how I trade my smaller time frames. I'm always looking for coming off support, going to resistance. If I break that resistance, I'm looking to the next resistance, etc., etc. But I only take 3 portions, one off here, and mostly I'll just let the third one ride, but in this case I probably would have closed had we got to here, but that wasn't a bad case. So that was pound yen. Today, am I looking at that cross? Look, I don't see why I wouldn't be, and there's a very good reason for that. The monthly pivot is holding up very, very well. It's been broken a couple of times, false break, false break, false break. And there is definitely a range top and bottom. You could use the monthly pivot. You could use this level here if you wanted. No, you probably couldn't use that level there. You could use that level there as well. You might tighten that one down a little bit actually. Down to, well, let's say the monthly pivot. What's wrong with that? Nothing. So there's your range really. And again, if you're looking to trade my style, you're looking to trade from resistance to support, from support to resistance, from resistance to support, from support to resistance, etc., etc., etc. The game goes on. And guess what I'll be trying to do today? I'll be looking for a short. This is really not such a bad place to take it, but it's not part of the strategy. The strategy says you take the second one, not the first one. And this is the first one. So I'll be looking for this to settle down here, just like Ash was looking for a nice gentle little sell-off, then a rally back to here, lower high, trade back to the short side. That's it in a nutshell, guys. That's exactly how I'm looking to trade each and every day. I look for candle patterns, of course, and certain context around different things, but essentially you've got it in a nutshell. That's how I trade. What did you find, Ash, for Euro Aussie? You still with me, mate?
Sorry, buddy. I muted out just so it didn't flick screens.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't get the Euro Aussie entry. I've got to be honest. Let me just bring it over and have a look with you. Maybe the guys can explain this.
I would take, but I totally understand why it would be taken.
You see, the rules, unless somebody can tell me something different, the rules of the daily wave rider is that the weekly pivot has to be in agreement with the super trend.
Oh, I've got no idea.
Now, well, the two major parameters, forgetting entries and setups and everything else, the two major parameters are that weekly pivot needs to step in the same direction as the super trend. So if super trend is green, weekly pivot needs to be stepping up. If super trend is red, weekly pivot steps down, and that's what confirms trend and confirms direction. Now we can see here that super trend is green and the weekly pivot has stepped down. I'll see if I can. Can you see that, mate?
I dare say that that's known as a pro entry.
Okay. All right. Well, that's okay. Well, in that case, let me judge it just on its own merits then, rather than a daily wave rider, because it's not a daily wave rider that I can really compute. Because I guess I've been telling people that they need to be following the absolute rule while they're learning.
And
Um,
absolutely right, and that's why they call this a pro entry. So unless you've done the pro course,
yeah, I see.
you don't know this exists, so you're not in the trade.
Well, I still don't get it.
I haven't done either course, so I don't get it.
I mean, yeah, I'm not right now. I'm not even judging it as a wave rider or anything else. But I don't. All right, let me say it this way. To say I don't get it, maybe. I mean, I don't get it, but I wouldn't enter this myself.
No, not at all.
maybe that's a bit more accurate. It looks like this is a bit of a difficult area actually, because the trend line could be in all manner of different places, but it's somewhere around here. There is some touches here. But the biggest issue for me is the fact that it's broken through this area of support here.
Absolutely.
And also, it was Euro Aussie, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Also, the other issue is that there's no reversal bar. You know, we just come straight back down here, and really today, and it may be by tomorrow, this could be of interest, but only if this comes down and rejects price and comes back up and closes above this particular level here. If it closes above 1.5894, then I'd be interested in it. But I'd be probably looking to get into that on Wednesday earliest. It wouldn't be today. I think I'd want some proof that this is actually turning around. I mean, if I come down to some other time frames, there's nothing on the 4-hour chart which suggests it's getting anywhere, and nothing on the hourly either. It's 15. The 15 has got equally nothing, which would suggest that it's the right time. And the 5. I think that's a very difficult. That'd be very difficult for me to justify if I'm completely honest, mate.
No, look, I'm with you, but that just goes to show that we're so lucky to have the variance in strategies that we can find.
Yeah.
And actually, get profitable trades going. That's the cool part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with that. I mean, if we were the PH did a little bit of the. I haven't got the market scanner on this, but I think he did a little bit of analysis on Sunday of what he may want to trade. Actually, you know what? There were a couple of things. There were a couple of trades that I remember, and they were both pound trades. I think one was pound CAD, and the other one was, I think it was pound Aussie. Now the Aussie dollar, you've analysed this already, haven't you?
Today, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you see, the Aussie dollar is an entry because the super trend is green, and the weekly pivot has stepped to the upside, and this bar has given us a train tracks reversal off these moving average, and the weekly pivot is closed above the weekly pivot. So there is this would be an entry. This would be an entry, and there's some new management for this as well. The new management takes us up now to take profit 1 at the first monthly area, and the first monthly area is now the it could be monthly resistance 1, it could be monthly resistance 2, depending on where the price is. But the first monthly area is actually the monthly pivot, and then the idea would be that you enter above this bar. Adding the spread and the stop price above this bar, take profit at first monthly pivot, which is quite shallow, but what it does mean is that I think this generates more winners. So you're taking profit at monthly pivot and then moving stops to break even and then seeing if the rest of it will run. Now, when you analyze this, was yours for a long or for a short?
On the Aussie?
Yes.
I was short the Aussie as of Friday, and now I'm waiting for another short off the monthly pivot.
Oh, perfect. So you're anticipating it to go and touch the monthly pivot.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that would be a daily wave rider entry. So Aussie dollar. It wouldn't be a favoured one in my opinion, because I think the reason that it's a pretty good slingshot is that it's quite rangy, isn't it? It's in a bit of a range here. So it's not really a nice clean trend, and that's the reason I wouldn't personally want it as a wave rider. In my opinion, this could be seen quite easily as a lower high rather than looking at this as a.
There's a clean trend on the daily.
Yeah,
pretty clean trend.
It's pretty clean
on the daily. Yeah.
Yeah. Trend to the downside.
Yeah, from let's say 4th of February, is it? First 30.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Lower low, lower high, lower low. Yeah, lower high. I agree. Yeah, definitely. So that would be probably one to be avoided. The cyclicity is not there for the upside. So there's that one. That super trend is green, and that's stepped that direction. So we'll have just a quick look through some of these and see if there's anything else. Right, the pound Swissy would be. This is interesting, isn't it? Because what you just said about the Aussie, I see the same with the pound here. The pound Swissy is really a lower low. Yep. In actual fact, super trend has stepped up. Sorry, the weekly pivot stepped to the downside anyway. Oh, that's odd. That's really strange. I've got.
What do you got?
Oh, I've got a lack of.
I don't think I've ever had a pound Swissy chart on my screen.
No, because it's so exposed to the euro. There's almost no point in trading the Swissy.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, maybe I have traded it on someone else's trade call, but it's something I never look at. I just don't.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist for me.
Yeah. Here's another one that this is Swissy yen, where it's really cycling to the downside, isn't it? Higher high, lower low, lower high. I haven't got the lower low yet, but that's really not in agreement with the wave rider either. So cyclicity's not there for that one, so you wouldn't probably look at that. That's not in agreement anyway.
Looks like a nice channel going up there, though. So it's something I might get interested in. What's the cross?
This one here is the pound yen.
Oh, okay. So yes,
it's actually been quite difficult recently. In fact, Aussie Kiwi's the one that does seem to be in agreement. You know, that we got some lower lows and lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, maybe another lower low. This is the one that's in agreement with the cyclicity and the stepping. So weekly pivot is stepping to the downside, and the super trend is red. So this one would be considered at some point this week. I don't think we've had a bar to be able to enter off, and you'd want something which gave it a decent entry. But that certainly would be something that you could consider, wouldn't it? But the only thing with
what it's been doing off the weekly pivot, if you've been trading bounces, you get on real well.
Yes, you have. You're absolutely right. I'm going to bring this. Yeah, do you know what? Actually, the trend on this one's really good, isn't it?
And the confluence, 20. What is that? The blue is that 20 moving average, and the
no, you've got the 25 and 15.
Whatever that.
So this, the blue one's the 15.
Okay, the 15 and the weekly pivot, when they come together and price hits them, you've been to a party in the last.
Yeah, you absolutely have. Yes, you're absolutely right. Let's bring this in here. Yeah, I see. God, this has actually been a pretty nice trend for quite some time. All I'm looking now for is to see whether there's enough room for this to continue. And I think this is the only thing with this one. I really, really like it. But when we bring this into longer term time frame territory, go all the way to the monthly. You don't see it that well on the monthly, but let's go to the weekly. And this is the only problem for me. That area of support back in 2015.
Where are we at? 102 or something?
Yeah, 102.6. Yeah, well, we're at 103 now, 103.2. You know, it's one of those that I think for a short-term move, there could be something there. But maybe for something longer term, this may not be the best area to try and get in. It looks like there's a bit of room. The indicators suggest that there's some room, but actually, no, they don't. Actually, I think we could get a bounce here.
I don't know what's driving that. To be fair, and it's been happening for a long time, as you say.
Yeah, it has. Numbers from New Zealand pretty good recently.
Well, I don't take much notice of them. And I know the Aussie's been on a downtrend, but
Yeah.
this one's fairly substantial.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, there's just
A pair of currencies actually travel, you know, in sync quite often. In most often.
yes, they do. Yeah.
Be things like dairy products and milk and
Yeah.
you know things like that happen in New Zealand that don't in Australia to a large degree. So I don't know. I mean, if Julian was in the room, he'd say this is why X, Y, Z because he's all over that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
I've got no idea why that's driven down like that.
Yeah. I mean, you see what I mean? Look at this here. Look at the this weekly pivot here. I just don't think that's generated properly. So that's that. I'm getting a bit of a glitch in my system at the minute as well. So it's actually making it a bit trickier to pick out trades. I don't. I think daily wave rider traders have had a bit of a rough ride recently, from what I can see. And it's not so much that. Well, there's a bit of a lack of opportunity. Here's another one here, stepping to the downside. So the super trend is red, and this is stepping down. And you know, there's not an entry. I won't go into the entries. No entry. There might be. Yeah, there is an entry point here. But again, you know, it probably looks a little bit low down here. Let me see. Yeah, Euro Kiwi. You know, this we just had the Aussie Kiwi at a potential point of support from a long way out, and now we got this Euro Kiwi, which looks like a potential point of support also from quite a long way out. So I wonder whether the Kiwi might be about to turn around against some of these currencies.
Looking like it's at a nice level, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. Absolutely. So I'd probably be a bit keener on some buying opportunities than selling. Let's have a quick check in on the FTSE. Go on, mate. What were you going to say?
That I was going to follow Aussie Kiwi this year, and I did in the early little bit have a little look at it, but I haven't really done too much about it. But if it's been trending like that, it would have been hopeless for me.
Yeah, what, to actually try and trade it?
Although, if it's trading in channels, then that's fine. Sorry, have a look at the FTSE, and I'll see if I can find something.
Yeah, no, that's okay, mate. I was also just going through because I did mention that there were some pound crosses, but actually none of those seem to be in too much agreement either. That the charts are a little bit of a mess, actually. Kiwi CAS is another one that I think was a daily wave rider, and let's see the point that it became a daily wave rider as well. Oh no, sorry, that's on the wrong chart. Yeah, still there. That looks like a pretty good entry there. Yeah, could have got some Kiwi CAD maybe on the 15th. Yeah, there's not a great deal of opportunity. I'll just quickly check gold as well. I'll have a look at one thing here. The 15th. Right, let's see what we got. All right, let's just quickly check gold and see if that's doing anything. WTI, because we have been looking at WTI, haven't we? And it doesn't seem to have done a whole bunch. Yeah, see WTI. There probably is a daily wave rider set up there, but that may have come a little bit too far. And I want to check gold if I can find it. Where is it? Bitcoin going nowhere.
Did it break 4,000 or not?
No, it's still kind of meandering underneath. Yeah, there's gold there. Yeah, there's gold. There's gold. Yeah, gold looks like it's turned its fortunes around as well. Seems to be sort of quite a lot in with it's just hit a little bit of a lever of potential resistance here as it's got up to the weekly pivot. But gold again would be something that I think we'd be probably looking for further moves higher. Yeah, quickly on the FTSE. The FTSE it's basically done a whole bunch of nothing since opening. Actually, a little bit lower right now. But I like the fact that it's still holding the daily pivot. If it closes below this bar, this previous bar, which rejected the daily pivot, then I think we're probably likely to see this this monthly pivot down here. And I've just got to have a look at the likelihood it crashes through there. I don't really want to do anything too early. I prefer to let it develop a little bit and see what it's going to show me. You've checked out news and data already. There doesn't seem to be a lot.
You take notice of orange news, don't you? There is a bit of that.
Oh, there's a bit of orange news. Okay, we'll have a quick look. Yeah, it still looks like this area is more likely to hold. My short currently is down here, but I'll probably shove it up a little bit tighter if the market does start to look like it's going to weaken here. In many respects, well, no, I think I'll leave things as they are. Because realistically, the uptrend still has to be respected. You know, which is why I don't really want hedge opportunities to kick in too early. Yes, Ben, you're absolutely right. It could be a double bottom, which is why you wouldn't want to get in there. It's just a bit too tight, isn't it? Okay, sorry. I'm going to just double check that news if that's all right with you, Jeff.
All right, mate. Go for it. I'll have a look at the 30-minute charts. We've got 8 minutes to go. I haven't really been through the lot of them, so let's do that. And you have a look, and we'll come back in just a tick. Let's go and look at the whole damn lot of them, shall we? This now looks as though it is bouncing off yesterday's daily pivot. That's cool. I'm not sad about that. That's the euro US dollar. If that were to be the case, happy days. That's very near my second entry at this point. Oh, sorry, I look at the 30-minute chart. That's what I was here to do, wasn't it? Is there anything that needs to be done in the next little bits? Well, really, as you can see, we're straddling the daily pivot, so there's no fixed emotion there from the market or me at this point in time. What I do see, however, is glaringly obvious that we do have a situation here, and that situation is thus. We have a potential acceleration point right here. I couldn't trade it in a month of Sundays, I don't think, because entry there, spread say, I haven't got enough room to take profit before the high of the day. I don't trade into the high of the day, full stop. And unless I've got profit, of course. If I can bank, then I will trade into it. But if I can't bank, I won't. But that's looking. That really is an acceleration point right there. Interesting. I may have to have a look at that at the end of this candle and see if I can sneak an early take profit or something of that nature. Depending on the size of this bar, of course, and how it finishes. It may finish up here somewhere, I don't know. All right, so that's euro dollar, Aussie yen. Aussie yen is at resistance, has poked its bib through that resistance, but is that as strong as this resistance? That's always going to be the question. The one thing I note with extreme interest is that we haven't tested the daily pivot today. Those of you who were in last Wednesday, I think I was talking about pivots, and that of course will tell you straight away that the only thing I'm thinking here is don't go long. Although I can definitely see there's an opportunity to go to the monthly pivot. There's no way on God's green earth that I'll be trading this long, and that's a fact. So, sorry, caveat, until it gets down here. Then different story, but it's got to get down here before I consider it long. So nothing there for me at this point. Should it give me some sort of reversal situation, so maybe this turns into a head, that a shoulder, another shoulder over here. I'm talking a lot of time and water going under the bridge, so we won't even pontificate any further, I don't think. Now the Aussie, we've mentioned this before, and classic place to go short here. There's no question about that, except that the reward to risk was absolutely abysmal. That was yesterday, of course. If you traded on that candle, if you traded on the smaller time frame, as I did on Friday, this was Thursday's candle, sorry. Thursday, Friday, Monday, yep. So that couldn't be traded as a daily bar, but if you drill down a little bit further, and as I did, got in on the hourly, then it became perfect sense, but it didn't last too long, and we made a little bit of money, but not too much. I'm looking for this to recur, to be fair. So what I'd really like to see is that bar repeated in a mini-me, if you like. I'd like to see it much smaller than it is. So monthly pivot would be fine, reversal. This trend line would be fine, reversal. Probably the best case scenario here would be if price actually went through all of those levels. So went through the monthly pivot, went through this trend line, hit this trend line, went through it a little bit, hit some resistance, maybe some horizontal. There's a level through here. Then got back underneath here and retested it, and we can then go back in the opposite direction. At this point, there is no trade, that's for sure. That's the daily, of course, and the 30-minute is exactly the same. No trade, can't go long, and at this point in time, I can't go short either. Cable, oh gee, I'm just bursting at the seams. Is that the right word?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of news on that as well from today.
What do you got?
Just the fact that it seems like MPs have taken over the Brexit process. They've put through some amendments. The government was defeated yesterday, so one of the Tories' own put through an amendment where they could start taking control, and the government was defeated. So Theresa May is just walking a tightrope, mate. It's quite amazing how she's still balancing.
Taking control away from her. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Why didn't they?
Yes, because they're just disenfranchised of how much she's ignored them.
Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well,
amazing.
That should be pretty good news. That should move the market. Why hasn't it? When was that released, mate?
Just overnight.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Analyze it for me. Which way is that should be good for what?
Oh, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? That's such a poignant thing to say. Analyze it, because the charts. Well, let's have a look. I think that's a really poignant thing to say, mate. And I'll tell you why. Because when I look at this, what's going on? Yes, it is, and I suppose the question is, how does it change the game, and who does it change the game? Who does it change? I can't say it right. Whose favour does it change the game in?
Yep.
And I would suspect it would be the Bulls, because Theresa May is going to have to go for a she may well now have to take it back to the people, and that those referendum questions just start to get much more in focus. However, you'd think the uncertainty would be bad for the pound, but and because of those two aspects, all you can do is look at the chart, and the chart just says, I haven't got a clue, because it just sort of, we're kind of bashing our head up here. I see I see a little head and shoulders pattern, which is probably not that easy to see on the 4-hour. But when I flip to the hourly, I think there is this head and shoulders pattern kind of going on as well. So that looks a little bit weak. We are at resistance. So if I was looking at this right now, I'd certainly be much more interested in selling than buying. But I think longer term, we would always have people gobbling up the pound wherever they possibly could. So if the pound swings down, I guess one more time before this whole debacle is finished, somewhere there, then I think the buyers are going to be probably sitting in wait around about the monthly pivot. That's what I'd be thinking. If I was thinking about how this is going, indecision in Parliament, indecision in this particular area, but we are at a point of resistance. Let that point of resistance play out, back down to monthly pivot, and then look for upside. That's the way I'd be looking at it.
Yeah, I kind of thought that had already happened, and I thought they might already be in, but it doesn't look to be the case. They haven't burst through here.
No.
Yeah, bugger. That's kind
Yeah.
of my spanner in the works for me. I need to.
Well, tell me about what you were thinking, because
I was thinking I can't see anything but long here. From a
you can't see anything but long.
That's right. I can't see anything but long.
Okay. All right. Let's have a look.
Well, same chart as you were looking at, really. If I have a look at the daily chart, it's telling me that since this double bottom in December, we have had nothing but higher lows, higher highs, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. And as you say, off this trend line here and back above the monthly pivot and the weekly pivot have we come. Yet we haven't been able to break through here. Why? Because of the uncertainty, I suppose. But, now down to the weekly pivot, it's another little potential bounce point. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned here now because of what you said, because this is the reaction to overnight, of course. Instead of breaking, we've come off this resistance trend line where you would have anticipated that we'd be looking for a new high. That hasn't happened. So now, I'm a little bit on the why is it so side.
Absolutely, which is yeah, I mean, that's the question that needs to be answered, and I do find it difficult.
Because
I think the big,
if you look at the 4-hour chart, you're now getting a sequence of lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows until this happens.
This is the thing. This is the thing, which is why I think you're absolutely right in the hold on. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in the longer term, in the way you're looking at it longer term. But I think in the short term, or the interim, if you like, I think there is the weekly pivot either holds, and that's going to be the bounce point, which I guess is where you were looking, or the monthly pivot holds. But I think that there is a longer term long, and if you're talking about daily kind of time frames, I'm with you 100%. But just the way that the market is shaping right now, it's got a distribution pattern right on an area where there would be one, and the news doesn't seem to be aiding the bulls at this particular stage. That they haven't really got anything to grab onto. So, for my mind, the path of least resistance is probably down rather than up.
Yeah, I can totally see it. What I'm also seeing on the 4-hour time frame is with this bar, which has now run away from the resistance trend line, it's also at the top of the range, and that concerns me because I'm almost willing to speculate that if price goes back above this bar, current bar, then it will take off. So if price can find its way back to the high of this current bar on the 4-hour chart, I think it can take off. But you know, trading at this level long is a poisonous chalice.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Which I suspect, because of that, does that just not mean that we need to let this develop a little further and see if we can get a bar which is a little bit more palatable?
Yeah. I should be looking at 30-minute chart, shouldn't I? It's easy to get distracted, isn't it? I'll have a quick look at them. I shouldn't take long. Aussie yen, nearly. Hasn't come back to retest there yet, so no. Euro dollar. I said I'd have a look at this, didn't I? And you know, in another life, I'm just jumping into this long straight away. What's the hourly telling me? Is it telling me to wait? Yeah, it is. Yeah, okay. Thought process. It's going to be the same dodgy trade. So I've not got room for profit here, and that's the issue. So what I might do, depends how big the candle is. If it's at 12, 13 pips as it is now, on the hourly chart, then I will place a long above that bar, but I'll take profit before the high of this one. So it'll only be like 4 pips, something like that, just to make myself safe, because trading into the high of the day, as I say, without taking profit is a no-go zone for me. I just don't do it. It's way too dangerous. So I'll come back to this at the top of the hour, and if it looks pretty much like it is now, I will trade it long, because it's a definite acceleration point here. No question in my mind at all. So that's the euro dollar. As I said, there's no way I can trade this long at the moment until we get to here, because I've got pivots screaming at me, get down, and I'm not doing anything against what they say. Cable on the 30-minute chart. What have we got? Anything that looks interesting? Yeah, it continues to look interesting long for me. Again, there's an acceleration point here, but it may only be accelerate to DR1, which is no good to us. It's similar to the euro that I've just mentioned. You've got to take profit before those levels, and it's not there for me. And yet, if I look in the other direction, and this is how silly it is, and this is what we've been talking about, it is giving me signs in both directions that it can break, but it hasn't to this point, and therefore I haven't got a. Well, I suppose I have. When I can see all of these things taking place, it's a clear sign to me that we need to wait. We need to sit down and relax and just wait for something to happen. So now I've got my rectangle. It becomes a whole lot clearer to me what I need to do. I need to wait for one of two things. I need to wait for a lower high here and trade it short, or I need to hit the bottom of this range and then wait for a higher low. So simple. If you do the right, if you put the right things, for want of a better word, things, what are they called? They're called analysis, data on your chart. If you put that on your chart, then it becomes very, very clear what you need to do. So I don't need to do a thing, is what I'm saying, until that happens. Euro yen. We haven't discussed a bias on this one. There's probably no need to, because although we seem to be in a rectangular range, we've got a lot of highs, but we don't have a lot of equal, or maybe we do through here. Okay. We'll whack it in, guys. It's messy, isn't it? Middle of nowhere, no man's land. Don't want to know about it. Euro pound, still trying to get short this and still being denied an opportunity to do so. The real reason I don't want to get short right now is because I'm seeing on the daily chart more than anything, sorry, not the daily chart, the 4-hour chart more than anything, a double bottom and a series of higher lows. Yes, we've had a massive higher high, no question, but really we're still continuing to get higher lows, and that kind of spooks me a little bit. We've come off the bottom of the range once again. I don't see a nice clear lower high for me to trade long, but I'm thinking this can go back to here, then I'll look for shorts, so I'm just not ready to trade that. The 30-minute chart on dollar yen is probably far more interesting. Why? Because we've had false break. What I'd really like to see here is price smash up to here, hit the weekly pivot very, very quickly, just a rapid ascent, and then come back down to here. That would give me what I call the Three Little Indians scenario, and I love the Three Little Indians because they're telling me that there's a rapid fall coming very, very shortly. At this point, that's not the case. So I need to see these highs taken out, is what I'm saying, because there's liquidity up here for sellers. So that's what I'm looking for. Let price come to there, get back into here, give me the retest, then I'm short, very, very quickly short. But nothing there right now. Pound yen looks good, looks really good for a short right now. I know it's kind of weird, isn't it? The bias is definitely long, but look at the monthly pivot. Broke it, bounced off it, hit support, back to it, resistance, hit support, didn't quite make it, but back to support, made it again, didn't come back to support, hit it again, false break, back to support, didn't get there, but hit resistance, back to support, back to resistance, back to support, back to the monthly pivot and resistance. So what am I looking for? Looking for a lower high. At this level would be absolutely superb, and then I look to trade it short. So that's where I'm at on pound yen. I've got a couple more. Aussie CAD. This turned out to be a bad decision, almost as bad as the euro yen. Well, neither of them were bad decisions. It's just a victim of the strategy at the time, because the decisions made at the time, in my humble opinion, were both right. We traded Aussie CAD, yes. Traded Aussie CAD long above this bar here. If you'll recall, when was that? Week and a half ago, something like that, nearly 2 weeks ago. Because we'd broken clear of the channel, we'd retested the channel, and it looked like we were, if we came back to here, going to break out of it again. That's exactly what took place. I noted that we fiddled and fiddled and fiddled and fiddled and fiddled here for 4 days in a row, and we just could not break through the highs. Of course, I then moved I moved my stop entries before that, and this candle here took me out, to be fair. Winner, yes, but oh, what a feeling it would have been had we been able to stay in this trade. We would now be at only just short of 2 to 1. But there you go. SH1T happens. Again, you know, if I point this out, you should be able to see this fairly clearly. Double bottom, double false break, higher low. Trade. Gee, we're good in retrospect, aren't we? Magnificent trade.
Double bottom, double false break, and the higher low.
Yep, double false break, double bottom, bullish engulfing bar. Throw that one in as well if you like.
Yeah.
Then we got the higher low here.
Yeah, yeah.
Trade it.
Yeah.
But we didn't stay in. Never mind. Mate, were you here last week when I was talking about euro yen?
Yes.
kind of pleading with everyone to go short. Remember, I traded one that I lost.
Yes.
This one here, that I traded as a break and bounce off the daily pivot. And I said at the time, crazy trade, but it was a just in case trade. It was just in case this happened.
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw this, again, 3 little Indians, bang, false break, false break, false break. And as soon as I saw that, there was just no doubt that I had to get into it. Unfortunately for me, it happened, the entry came on the hourly chart off this bar here.
Yeah.
How's that for a risk to reward?
Yeah.
Sadly,
Yeah.
I came out here and I only got 4 to 1 out of it.
Yeah.
But that's around about 15, 16 to 1.
Yeah. Well, the euro absolutely tanked, didn't it, after those German numbers came out? It didn't help at all.
Absolutely. But isn't this exactly the same thing I've just been talking about? You know, straight back into the range, lower high after a retest. Entry.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
So is there any wonder that I look for those all the time? Not at all. A couple to go. Have we? Euro CAD 1. Yeah, nothing there on the 30-minute chart that I like. We've had a test of the daily pivot. We've bounced off it, not quite reached the weekly pivot. I can see this consolidating and nothing more. Euro Aussie, the trade that the daily wave rider people are in, and they would have entered here. So that one so far is going okay. I've got no idea where their TP1 is. I suspect down at these levels somewhere.
Oh, were they shorting the euro Aussie?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying go long.
No.
Oh, that changes everything. That changes everything. No. Then in that case, then I get it. I do get it. I get that. Yeah. Now I understand it, and it makes that would make sense.
Yeah, well, I can see why you would want to trade there. I wouldn't, but I can certainly see why you'd want to. I get it. From me, 30-minute charts, nothing doing. This is a magnet to price as far as I'm concerned, and that's the reason I wouldn't have traded short here. It's not going to stop it going, of course. It's just that I would be looking for price to pull back here before it went short. That's my situation. But you know, again, can totally see it. You know, we've had the break, we've had the retest. Why wouldn't you be looking for short here? I get it, just not for me.
Yeah.
Mate, I think that's about it. I don't really want to look at Aussie Kiwi, and I've had a look at Aussie CAD, so that's pretty much me through the ringer, and no entries at this point.
Okay, I'll just give a quick FTSE 100 update. What we've got going on is a little bit of indecision really happening in the market. This is what we have. Still managing to hold the weekly pivot. The significant chart is really the 15, because when we look at the 15. We have got price trying to get down, rejecting the low, trying to get down, rejecting the low, giving us a really nice bullish bar. This particular bar is not particularly healthy, but it's just just driven us right back to the daily pivot again. So you can see why the daily pivot is a good entry place. We're just waiting to see if it can. We're just waiting to see if it can actually sort of pick up from this point. And I've had a thought about this. I've got a little bit of concern to do with the longer term charts. I mean, there's no doubt that the daily chart is in an uptrend. You know, let's go back to this on the clean chart here. I'm just going to mark off the area where the weekly pivot is, so we have it. It's around about 71.70. So we're just going to bring this in and see what that looks like on the longer term time frames. So the daily chart is in this trade to the up, so this trend to the upside, and still got the high and a potential high low here. So we're still looking for that to push from this point, and 71.70 is just about there. So it's a little bit low, and it might be a bit tricky. But what I will probably look to do is look for a short in this area, and what I'll probably do is leave this one on. Now I just want to see what the weekly chart looks like with that short. It's not a great level, is it? It's not the best level. That the short in that area is a bit of an issue. I prefer that point there for a short. Somewhere around the 71.90 would be better. So it's another 20 pips, but because where the weekly pivot sits, it's going to make it a little bit tricky. Because what I'd like to do is look for a short. Go back to the hourly chart again with the pivots. I'd like to look for the shorts in the in this area here, and if the market was to take out that particular level, if it comes back and tests the weekly pivot, then I'll probably just take the short off the table and see if it can push to the upside. But now looking at these levels, I think that might be a difficult trade to take. So the chances are, if it does take it out, it will probably reject the 71.90. And then either it collapses from that point or it tests and goes. What I would have quite liked to have done, I think it's going to be just a little bit too messy. But what I would have quite liked it to done is go right away from this point, right away to here, in no particular kind of angle or pattern, but somewhere in about this point here, and then drag itself back down to the weekly pivot. And then probably take the short off the table, leaving the long. So all points leaving the long, and then see if it can start picking up from that point. And that looks a little bit too complicated now, though. I might have to think about it. My initial reaction would be take a short here. If it's going to reject, then see if price is going to reject at that point and come all the way back down again. And I'd probably, if it did start to swallow up the price action down here, then I could just put stops at break even on the upside and see if the short does actually come into play. If the short's not going to come into play at that point, I'd look to see whether I could get something of a retest of the 71.90, and then come back down again, take the short off, and then just leave the long on the table. But I'm a bit concerned about this level now, because what could happen is that it may well bash its head against that area and not really give a clean opportunity to suggest which direction it's going in. One thing about it is, I suppose, if it just cancels each other out, then I'd probably just take the trade down. And if it did start going short after taking the short off, then I'd just probably take the long off at that point and take the profit on that one on the way up. So there's a few options, but it's looking a little bit. It looks a little bit tricky. That weekly pivot is not in the best areas. It's kind of in a bit of no man's land is the problem.
Sometimes they do that, don't they? They just don't play the game right.
No, they absolutely don't. They just do a quick fib there. Well, there's a 50% retracement of the move on the weekly pivot, so that would suggest that it would be an area of resistance. Certainly initial. But what we have to recognize is that what can happen is the market could come up to this area, then reject the area, but actually just cause some sort of pullback. And then the pullback just take us down to near these lows again, and then the market takes off from the next possible point there. So I'd love to get that short in. I think I'll probably stick with that plan. I'll probably wait to see if this can get to the weekly pivot. If it does get to the weekly pivot, I probably will initiate a short here.
But I guess the obvious question is for those listening who want to follow.
Yeah.
When you do take the short, what sort of weight do you put on it in terms of, let's say you're trading the long at 1%? How would you weight the short?
I'd have them both the same.
Same.
I'd have them both at 1%. Yeah, because the way that I would look at it, I mean, the thing is, if you've got a long at 1% at this point, and let's say the long is, I wish you could actually scribble on these charts, but let's say the long is 65 pips to the upside. So let's say we got a pound point on, so 65 pounds would be the profit here. Now, if I take a short in the same area, apart from the spread, which is a pip or pip and a half, there's not really going to be anything lost. You know, you're in absolute balance. So the 65 is secure. And then if the market pushes down from that point, the idea would be put a stop at break even here and put a stop at break even here. And if the market is to continue to the downside, taking the stop off, continuing the short, and then the short makes the money. If the market bounces at this point, then the stop at break even would be taken off here, and the long would be given the chance to make more money.
Yep.
So but the issue is, what could happen is that the market goes up to this point instead. And this would be, in a way, the worst possible case scenario. The market goes to this point instead, rejects comes back again, and at that point, I would take the short off anyway, because it's the short hasn't been initiated in the correct area from the analysis. So I'd want to just come back down here, take the short off, and let the long run. The issue is going to be if it starts getting really choppy in this area. But as long as you see it getting choppy, as long as the choppiness is evident, then it's not a problem, because then you just sort of like say this market's getting too difficult. We'll take them both down and just accept that the profit has been from this point to this point on the upside. Does that make sense? It's quite difficult, isn't it?
It does to me. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a way to play it. The other possibility that could happen is rather than the short getting initiated, rather than the short coming back and testing, the market just takes off right to the upside, and you don't get a chance to take the short off again. Which again, at that point, you probably just close both trades and just accept that this is all that there was an offer, because the market just isn't behaving. But the key factor is, as soon as we get from this point, if we get from this point to this point, there's money in the bank, and at that point we can play a little bit and see if we can squeeze as much money out of this market as possible, you know, without any risk of it coming back down again. So what I want to do is get at least 65 pips out of this, and then from that point, we just have a look and see what it gives us. But the good thing is that if it gets confusing, is that you just take them both down. You know, if this first one's made money, just take them both off and just accept that it's all that has been available. Because the market has been so susceptible to change, you know, so it's so susceptible to instant change.
I was just going to say that was the classic yesterday that I explained earlier on the pound yen 30-minute trade I took yesterday. It just up and down like a father's pants, I used to call it. But,
yeah,
you know, it's very wise counsel to take profit early.
Well, this is the thing, and that's the point about this, isn't it? If the market does go up and down, then actually the way of trading it this way actually takes the stress out of it. It can do what it wants at that point.
Yep.
Obviously, the issue is if what could possibly happen is that you take a short here, and it comes all the way back down again, takes this stop out, bounces back up again, and you've got nothing. So you know, so there's always going to be variance. There's no perfect way to trade, and I suppose that's the key, isn't it? Sometimes it's better just to kind of just trade the way that is, I suppose, conventional, if you like. Put a stop at 1% at break even. You know, put a stop at 1% and then move it back up at break even, and then see if you can get a run in the market. But the thing about initiating some shorts is that if things work out, then you can allow a trend to run because you've hedged when you're in profit rather than having to hedge when it's going against you. Because that's what happened here. I've got a long in the market up here, which I'm just waiting to get off the table, because I went short at this point. I went short here, and the market, or it might even be here actually. I went short at that point. It started coming down, popped itself up, and now my hedge was above the previous high. You know, the high of the time. I thought I was looking at the high of the time. It popped up, took me in. I went short again. So fortunately, I had a double short on. And I took one of the shorts off here. I literally just took another short off yesterday around about this level here. And now I've just initiated the long here. So that's the only problem, is that when you put in the hedge, it's the worst thing in the world when the hedge is an insurance hedge. You know, and that's what this was. It was an insurance hedge. This one would be more of a how can I squeeze the most market? How can I squeeze the most money out of it kind of hedge?
Yeah,
So they're the best ones.
Hedge is really giving you a minimum amount you're prepared to lose.
Yes, absolutely. Because the thing is, the idea with this one is that if it breaks the highs and it keeps going, I want to be on the upside. I want to be sort of trading this to the upside. So if it explodes, then you're away. But that's not what happens. Sometimes you just get this false break, which is the worst thing that can possibly happen. But it does happen. You know, they're fairly rare, but they do happen. So because I've got that false break, now I've just got to wait until this market behaves. What I could do, which is still a possibility, is if this gets up to around about, you know, between the same area, between the two areas, what I could do is just take them both down. So this long cancels out this long, and then that the money was made on the downside anyway, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, it can get a little bit complicated when you kind of get the hedge. The thing for me was that I was getting in trades that were just working out, and I'd almost kind of like lost my knack for where things started to look good for hedging, and I think that's probably, well, I don't know, that probably is a sensible hedge, but it's just you know, this one's just, it's an irritant really more than anything else. It's not a problem, but it is a bit of an irritant.
Mate, good luck with keeping up with the Telegraph group and how you're going to manage that.
Well, do you know, I've told the Telegram group where I've gone long. I haven't really sort of mentioned management, because the management is way too complex to explain in a Telegram, and I wouldn't expect anybody to be trading this way anyway. You know, you're much better off having a straight down the line strategy like you have, and managing it that way.
Mine gets a bit curly too, I can tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But you know what the key is, and I was saying this to Paul when we were away. The key is, ultimately you have to do what works for you, and you know that's what you do, isn't it? You do what works for you, and what works for me is to have a position, and the only way I can really have a position is if I take hedges. So you know, some people are okay with putting a trade in the market. If you get stopped out, you look for the next one. That's never really suited me. You know, I prefer to have something to manage.
Mate, I've got a trade to close the show
cool.
out. Not surprisingly,
better than that.
Euro dollar.
Nice.
And it's long on the hourly chart. And again, this has got to be micromanaged perfectly, because our entry is above this candle here. The level I'm using as an entry is 1.1315. But you must take profit. Sorry, you can do whatever you like. I must take profit at 113.21. Okay, as soon as I hit that level, I'm going to take about half of this position off, and then I'm going to move my stops. Whatever I take off here, say it's 6 pips, hopefully it's 6 pips, but the spreads will cut a bit into that, so it'll probably be 4.5, 5 pips if we hit that level. And I'll be taking half off the table, and my target is very clear. It couldn't be clearer. It's the weekly pivot, which is at 1.1339. So the reason we're taking this trade is we're risking about 13 pips to make nearly double that. Okay, so it's a 2-to-1 position. So at the end of the day, if you take half off here and move your stops to a safe position, in other words, so you can't lose, you'll finish up with a 1-to-1 trade if you hit that target, which is pretty cool. I reckon anyway. So there you go, mate. It is euro dollar. I haven't been triggered short into the second trade. I'm still short in the first one, but that's taken profit.
Great.
That's taken.
Oh, you're still short on the euro dollar.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice. You now you're looking for a long.
Now I'm looking for a long to here. If it hit the if it hit the weekly pivot to the pip and turned around, didn't take my stop on the short, this would turn out to be a real doozy of a trade.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you see, that's what I'm talking about. I think it's because it's practically a hedge, isn't it?
Practically a hedge, yeah. But I'm not thinking that way. I'm actually seeing a trade here. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've taken profit twice on this one, and that can only be a winner if the stop is hit. And if it is, then we've made a little bit on. Well, we've made a decent amount on the way as well. So
nice.
No dramas.
Nice, love it.
So that's
good work, mate. Good work. Okay, well that's it's Tuesday today, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Tuesday today. We are here all week.
Yep, I'm here all week. You're here all week. There's another show tonight. You're not in that one. I'm in that one. That's the TTR evening show, which happens at around about, goodness me, 2.5 hours from now. I think I've got time for dinner and a wine, mate. Happy day.
Oh yeah, go and enjoy a nice dinner and wine. It's the start of the month next week as well, so that's another reason I might just end up taking both these positions down as well. Kind of clearing it up for the end of the month. We'll see how it goes, but if this FTSE takes off, then at least if it takes off, I've got some good decisions to make. Decisions that are
yes, that's right.
Actually, they're profitable rather than we're having that one hanging over my head right now, which I'd like to get rid of.
Happy days, mate. All right, guys, we're going to leave you with it, and thank you very much for your company. We'll do it all again tomorrow, as I said, at the
same trade time and same trade channel.
Happy days. Have a good one, guys. See you later. Bye.
See you, buddy. See you tomorrow. See you later, guys.